Welcome back to Take Two, presented by LeftRightPolitics.com, a discussion of the times and current events. I'm joined as always by Adam Matlack and Mike Pomerantz. Today I'd like your thoughts on the unrest in Minneapolis.
Well, I want to make sure that we do this in a careful way. George Floyd died unnecessarily, by all accounts, by the video. If you've seen it, I don't even know why he was being arrested or why he was being detained, and it does not matter. How he was treated is abundantly clear to me that it's abuse of power by the police, and it's something sadly we see all over the country consistently. Uh, it's become a conversation about race, and because Floyd was black and the officer was white, so obviously this had to be perpetrated because of racism, or race had something to do with it. I I I don't know if it did or not. I do know that hopping to that is ridiculous when police brutality happens consistently across America to different races, and maybe it is predominantly more. I've looked for the data, I haven't been able to find it. That it might happen more towards, in terms of percentage population or engagements, towards African Americans. I'd love to see data on that. I don't have it. I know that stories nationally carry favor to talk more about African American deaths and things like that than whites. Tony Timpa is the perfect example. Last month, largely the same thing. Four cops jokingly made fun of him, how he was behaving, with their knee on his back, and he died. Very similar circumstances. They thought he was on drugs or something. The footage is appalling. But here we are. I'm glad that people are trying to stand up against the police state. I think we're moving closer and closer to that the edge of totalitarianism, where it's like, no. These are rules. We'll go to any lengths to enforce them. We're not going to prioritize people, and we're not going to prioritize the rules. There's no way Floyd should have been left on the ground that long. The moment he was detained, he should have been taken care of. His well-being should be one of the highest priorities for the officers. Getting into it, though, beyond all of that, the riots, the unrest, the heart of it, I want to say, is a good thing. I want to be like, oh, I support civil disobedience. I think civil disobedience in many ways is the heart of, is the tree of liberty. It's part of it. I want to see that. I want to see people standing up. But man alive, violence doesn't get us what we want. And it's sad to see, to be thinking of MLK in days like this, where he talks about violence, murdering the murderer doesn't stop the lie. Violence doesn't get us anything. And so I'm sad, but I'm also somewhat optimistic of the future, because at least people are saying, okay, we're going to do something, and it never starts clean, and no uprising and no change happens cleanly. But man alive, the economic impact of the unrest and the burning down of apartment buildings, McDonald's, the raiding of Targets, this is misguided, and sadly, I think it's going to have long-term effect in Minnesota. But here we are, 2020, full-fledged.
Why is Derek, I don't know how you even say his name, Derek Chauvin, not in jail?
I don't know.
I mean, how much more evidence could there be that he committed an unjustified homicide?
I would also say that even the officer standing next to him.
Okay. So the dude who killed Floyd walks as a free man right now.
Yep. They're fired. They put him on paid leave, and I think when the story finally broke, they fired him. I don't know.
So they fired him. So he gets
That's
to
what I read.
he
Yeah.
gets to hang out with his kids. He gets to go see his friends. He gets to hang out, Netflix and chill.
Yep.
And
For now, I don't think that'll hold, but
well, how friggin' long does it take? I mean, when people say, oh, this violence, this unrest, this looting is completely inappropriate, how is it appropriate that this man is still free? So that's one part of it. I think we get more into the reaction because yeah, he was only on administrative leave, and then once we saw how upset everybody got, then we got to fire him. But they won't arrest him for some reason, and I don't understand that. Listen, this is not a new phenomena, police brutality. We can discuss whether it's been disproportionately meted out against one race or another, but that's not really the focus of my concern right now. I think about the change in the weather of media. In other words, this is stuff that has gone on as long as police have existed, but only now is it known, and not just known, but known on a global scale immediately. Immediately. There's no time to react. And I will tell you something. I have a big problem having to watch that video over and over and over again. Okay, that's a snuff film. And I want to know why media thinks it's cool to show anybody being murdered. I can't get my head around that. They're like, oh well, this is really intense, and you better not watch it. Like that's a red flag to a bull. We live in an era where sensationalism has taken over everything, and this has all the sensationalism you want. I mean, I haven't looked at the Tony Tempa video, but just looking at a little bit while we're talking about it, it seems like it's not as hard to see. I mean, this is the Floyd videos. A guy get killed in broad daylight. Look, I used to take cases against the police department, and there would be these videos, dash cams. Man, that changes everything. Once there's a video, that changes everything. And what was the case back when I was practicing was, maybe they show it on TV once, but now, man, you see that everywhere now, all the time, immediately. And people have no time to react. They have no time to think about it. They just got to play catch up. They got to play defense. And I'm horrified by what happened. I'm horrified that even after the beating that the city of Minneapolis took over the past 24, 48 hours, they still won't arrest these guys. It's very simple. That's all you got to do. These people will stop. But I am not on board. I am not on board with you saying that like some amount of law breaking is going to be okay. Like this is a debate we've had before, and I think like the laws should apply equally, and they should be obeyed, and there are mechanisms to change them. In this instance, what you have is the expression of lawlessness and unfair. I mean, whether it's true or not, it is perceived as unfair amount of police brutality and police murder directed against black people. So they're like, hey, laws don't apply to you. Guess what? They don't apply to me either. So I don't think that's the way to go. And if I'm misreading sort of one of the general parts of your approach, definitely correct me. I think we got to get back to some respect for authority that is predictable and ordered so that people can like know what they're going to do with their lives as opposed to the chaos that is clearly here, and it's going to get worse. But what do you think about the idea that like two wrongs don't make a right in this instance? If there's going to be lawlessness in the police department, the law should be used, in my opinion, to correct that situation as opposed to people tearing up Target and somebody got killed last night. I mean, that's another senseless death. Like we're not going in the right direction.
So when I talk about civil disobedience, I do not mean that a protester who takes it too far shouldn't be punished in a law sense. I mean that sometimes you have to take it a little too far. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about disobedience. I'm talking, you need to disperse. You need to not be here. You need to not be standing on the steps. You need to not be blocking the doors. These are things that are illegal, but are not violent. I support civil disobedience in a non-violent form, because if you got to send the message, it's not getting through. It's clearly not getting through, even with all the, oh no, it's about race, it's about race. Even if that's true, I'll take it. I'll take it, because at least they're going after something. At least they're trying to say, hey, look, this is bad. Brutality is bad. I can literally pull up 10 videos in a very short amount of time of cops murdering white people. Okay, I could probably pull up more of them murdering black people. I'm not sure, but I've gone down the list, and these things have happened since 2016 on video. But look, this is a police brutality issue. It 100% is. We can make it about race, and it can be worse because of race, and maybe it did have something to do with it. Maybe that guy's ingrained white supremacist thought was like, I'm just gonna leave this here. I'm not sure. That's not what the situation reads to me. That dude was big, and he was bad at what he was doing, and the three other guys bad at what they're doing too, not paying attention to any respect of what they should have had for him or the people around him. I don't know what they. But I am saying that it probably. What happened to the decency? What happened to the respect of what's going on here? Um, and then of course the riots, the response. I think you're right. I think the media inflamed some of that. I think they're pushing that agenda, and this happens. I was watching a lady. I mean, it's a video. I mean, it's appalling. You think that, what do you call it? She's in a wheelchair trying to stab people leaving Target. And I mean, she literally had a knife, and she was trying to stop people from stealing from Target. And people are screaming, and then people choking her, and then throwing stuff at her. And then, I mean, it's unbelievable. It is legit unrest up there, and that is one of the scariest things I've seen this year. And I, it's sad that it devolves into this. It's sad that it's turned into this, and that we lose sight of the problem, which is the fact that there's massive amounts of authority overreach, especially when it comes to the police. And people want to sacrifice their liberty for security. And there's this constant, uh, you know, said deal that we're all making. It's like, oh, I want to feel safe, so you don't get this, or I want to feel safe and you need to do this. And as long as it's just incredibly frustrating in today's time that this is where we are. I truly hope that the unrest can become nonviolent, and the protests can lead to meaningful ground gain in the idea that cops need to be held to a higher standard than what they're being held to now. And the idea that they're not arrested is part of the problem. I don't think the riots stop, because I don't think the riots are just about that. I think people are into themselves, whatever, oh, this is BS, yada, yada, and then they'll taken advantage of, and it's just mob rule. It's just a classic situation of democracy. You know, that crowd, majority rule, decided that what was in the Target was going to be theirs. Welcome to democracy in action.
I like, circle back a little bit to just summarize on a few things, but I like the potentially positive spin where we sort of envision a coalition that really gets into questioning policing in this country. And certainly I could see part of that coalition being a group of people who were primarily concerned about the violence that police perpetrate against Black people without justification. And it doesn't have to be the only part of that. And I like that idea of coming together. But I will tell you something. the negative reinforcement doesn't really work in a lot of cases. So you say, if you keep killing black people without justification, we're going to keep rioting. It's not gonna do it. But is it almost unavoidable when people have a perception, whether it's justified or not, when people have a perception that they are subject to daily subjugation by a system that is unfair? And you could say, well, that's entitlement, and these people, they have so many advantages over the working white man when it comes to affirmative action and welfare. But for whatever reason, okay, these people believe that they have been the subject of institutional racism. And if you want to have them, with their considerable strength and numbers, at the table to discuss maybe trying to reform the way we police people in this country to stop people like Tony Tempa from getting killed without justification, then I think table odds are you've got to accept that institutional racism might be a thing. And I think that is the barrier. That is the stumbling block. Nobody in certain circles wants to say that that's, hey, look, Obama got elected. Everything's good. Everybody's equal. He got to be the president. And there's rich people who are black. And there's people in the cabinet who are black. And yeah, that's all true. But maybe it's not just about a certain number of people making an achievement. Maybe it's about a whole giant number of people changing how they look at the world. And especially if those people are people with power and money, then that can make a big difference. So, I mean, we could go on this, but I
have to respond.
Okay.
Look. The question here is did Floyd? You've seen the video. You've been assaulted by the video. Did Floyd? Do you believe Floyd was murdered because he was black?
I don't know. I mean, listen. I have had the biggest police brutality case that I had was where a black officer shot another black man. But I have also had to be present for questioning and conduct questioning where it was clear to me that there was a very pronounced bias that the person answering my questions wasn't aware of.
Yeah. Look, the idea that race doesn't play a part or prejudice doesn't play a part in these officers or people's decisions is totally ridiculous. I'm not trying to argue the idea that race doesn't play a part, that fear, unrealized, or all these other issues that you want to talk about, or how they grew up, what they believe deep down. These are all things that are highly debatable. And I'm not trying, individual racism is at play here 100%. The idea that it's systemic, that it's ingrained in officers to do this, that basically just, well, if you're an officer, you're a pig, and you've been trained, and you are in a system that encourages you to be racist and encourages you to murder. But I gotta be honest, there's no way I'm buying that. So it's just not. I've seen too many cops murder white people in the same exact way cops have murdered blacks. And if that's the case, then how are the same two? It's about fear. It's a difficult job. It's about all these bad decisions being happening. In fact, and that's one of the worst things about the Floyd thing, by the way, is how slow it happened. That's the thing about it. There's a lot of these quick situations where it's like, oh, I'm fighting and I shoot this person who's unarmed and all this stuff, and that happened in a much worse fashion because they had time to sit there and think. They were in control, and that's one of the reasons why it's appalling to me.
I don't want to get into a whole other thing, but I will just throw this out there that maybe we could tee it up for another conversation soon. But the person who has I mean, this is sick what I'm about to say, but maybe it'll breed engagement. People will excoriate me in the comments. But the great winner in this horror, this tragedy, is Amy Cooper. Okay, a liberal, a Democrat, a New York City elite who clearly did not think of herself as a racist when she went out with her dog in Central Park. So, if it can happen to her, I think it can happen to a lot of people. And the problem is that everyone wants to point the finger at everyone else and say, you are the person who wronged me. But you got to look at your own conduct, your own thoughts. And I don't think Derek Chauvin ever did it. I don't think Amy Cooper ever did it. And we're seeing the results, which are sometimes, tragic.
I just want to say that my opinions are consistent, though. I'm focused on the individual, not this group. We talk about groups as if they're easy to pin down or easy to understand. They're groups. They're complicated. Individuals are complicated. Imagine a group or a number of people who are comprised of individuals. The idea that we're going to treat people not as individuals, and we're going to talk about systemic issues and all this stuff about this giant group of people who aren't similar, don't even have similar backgrounds, all these issues.
Yeah, but the theory is that Amy Cooper put Chris Cooper in a group, that Derek Chauvin put George Floyd in a group. So,
so the answer is to not continue to do that. Very good. I'm okay with that. Two wrongs don't make a right? Okay, these people.
How do you make it stop?
We shouldn't be grouping them at all. That's what my point is. So you're saying is the cops put these guys in groups, we should put the cops in groups. That's not the answer. It's not right. It wasn't right one way. It's not the right the other.
Hey, you're the guy who's calling for civil disobedience against overreaching police authority. That sounds to me like putting cops in a group. I mean,
well, hang on. There's a clear. I'm not denying the brutality, reality, and the fact that things need to change. I mean, we need rules of engagement that are far more severe for the police. I mean, I literally feel like, and I don't think it's true, but I think our military are held to a higher standard of rules of engagement than dang police are against our own citizens. And so, I mean, obviously, as a whole, we need to treat the issue from a macro position. But when a micro cosm or situation happens inside that big, we're not going to say, oh well, it's just the whole system's broken or the whole system's infected. It's not. It's maybe it is, and maybe I'd love to see the data, but I haven't seen data that suggests anywhere beyond deviation suggests that this isn't just really bad police work by people who may or may not be racist, but sure as hell are terrible at their jobs and have very little respect for the people that they were policing. Sorry.
All right. With that, that's all the time we've got. Thank you both for your thoughts. If you enjoyed our discussion, be sure to like and subscribe below and let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks again. We hope you'll join us for the next edition of Take Two, presented by LeftRightPolitics.com.